Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint Consulting, Darian the Family Guy, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best-kept secret in teaching. You got it, international education. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Kent the Cat Guy, Jacqueline from JP Mint Consulting, Darian the Family Guy, and Greg the Single Guy, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best-kept secret in teaching. You got it, international education. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another exciting episode of the International Teacher Podcast. My name is Greg. I'm Greg the Single Guy, and with me, of course, is Kent coming from Washington. Tell us, hello, Kent.
Hey, great to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And JP Mint down in Mexico, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
And also from Washington, we have our special guest. This is Nicholas Bradford from Washington also. So thank you for joining our show, Nicholas.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
What's so funny, Kent?
What are you laughing at?
Oh, you Vancouver, Washington, or Vancouver, BC?
No, Vancouver, Washington.
Okay, I stand corrected then.
Well, I said Washington, audience. Kent is asleep. It's way too late for him now that he's retired. He should have been in bed like 2 hours ago.
I was all excited because I thought Nicholas was like a half hour away. Turns out he's like 20 hours away. I don't know where Vancouver, Washington is.
So,
really? I thought it was like the same place.
We're right next to Portland.
He's right across the river.
Anybody in the audience wants to send a map to Kent, maybe he can learn where parts of Washington are. He's been out of the country for a while.
Listen, I know more about the Middle East than I know about my own state. I'm going to be honest.
There you go. Well, let's get on point here. Nicholas, you're joining us at the International Teacher Podcast. Can you give us a short little elevator pitch on your experience in education, what brought you to where you are now?
Okay, the short elevator pitch is I was a teacher. I come from a family of teachers, and I worked with young people who have some behavioral challenges. At the same time I was doing that in Vermont, I got involved with some restorative justice work, doing some evening volunteer work, some weekend work. Really excited about this. I met a couple folks who were really influential in my kind of career, whatever, and ended up coming back to Washington State. Really excited about this sort of work in schools. I got my master's in ed policy from the University of Washington and been doing this work since 2012. I founded the National Center in 2016, almost 10 years. And next year's 10 years. So we're going to have some parties. Maybe Kent, you can come over. You're close.
Count me in. As soon as I find you on a map.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be in Seattle and Portland for the parties. So just so we're clear.
I'll be there. JP. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great.
Let's make it an ITP reunion. Can I just clarify? You're saying restorative justice. Would you be able to do an elevator pitch on what that is? Just to bring us up to speed.
Yeah, for sure. You know, like this is part of our job, and my mission is to make restorative justice accessible and easy to understand. If you look at some of the kind of documents that people have put out internationally and nationally to describe this, it's a lot. There's a lot there. But my sentence is it's a relational approach to conflict. So how are you doing? This is the thing. It's like restorative justice is hard because it's trying to do two things at the same time. It's trying to engage in the conflict and build relationships. Any teacher worth their salt will tell you that relationships are essential to this work, to like teaching. And then when things get difficult, hits the fan, what do you do, right? And our response is like, we've got systems and procedures and all this other stuff to put in place that help us build relationships and engage in the conflict at the same time. Both for the little tiny stuff that's like hard and difficult and annoying, and to the big stuff where kids are getting in fights and cheating and, starting a fire or something like that.
And is it K-12? Are you seeing this in kindergarten?
So our work is K-12. One of my good colleagues has done a lot of work in the pre-K space as well. And then there's some work in college. Kind of dormitory is more sort of a great space to see the application in dorms. And then in the communities, mostly around juvenile justice and then some adult criminal justice situations. So young people who get hooked up with a charge, for theft or for fighting or whatever it is, you can't have a diversion to a restorative system. And those restorative systems look different, across the board. They kind of look different, but they all have some similar principles. And we can talk about those if you want.
I would love to talk about this stuff. I think you're right. I mean, I've been a teacher for a long time. All three of us have. Knowing the students is the key before you can dissolve any kind of, find any resolution to or dissolve some kind of dispute. And Kent and I have been fighting for years, and we need
if
some
someone
help.
can resolve our disputes, that would be great.
Exactly.
Nicholas, you might be the guy. If you could just tell the single guy how wrong he is, we could get this argument done with right now.
There's a great quote from Saul. I think I'm going to misquote it. I want to say Saul Williams, but he says, most fights start with two words, I'm right. And like, that's it, like the single guy, I mean, maybe in relationship, in like committed partner relationship, that's how you get into fights is like, say like, no, but my dishwasher, the way I load the dishwasher is the right way to load the dishwasher. And you're like, you know what? There is no right way to load the dishwasher. Like we can stop fighting about the dishwasher. My wife, we've got two little kids, and she would have to leave the room when I was changing our kids' diapers because I'm a big strong guy, whatever. Grab them by their feet, and I like lift them up like almost upside down.
The dad way.
Wipe their dirt butt, and then put it back. She's like, I can't watch this. I gotta leave. There's no right way to change
or
a
you
diaper.
hold them like a football instead,
or
right?
I was going to say,
that's a great way
like one of those traps in the forest by your feet. Well, I would have to agree with Greg that, it took me a while actually to figure out that so you can't just be the hammer. You can't just go in and hammer kids down and ching, ching, ching. I tried that. It didn't work out. I mean, I had 30 grade 8 students in Canada. So, to my credit, I was trying to teach them French in 30 minutes. So I had to hammer them down. But I started to realize that, no, if I got to know the kids and I started to actually make an effort to get to know them, then they're going, then that builds the respect and that starts the two-way street of communication and getting to know each other. But it took me a while. It took me a couple years, I would say, before I started to realize how important it was to get the relationships down.
Yeah. I think relationships, this is a challenge for teachers too, is that relationships, there's, 30 kids in the room. And one of the things that we see is like young people being rude to each other, just being mean to each other, condescending or whatever, sort of rolling your eyes when Greg asks a question or whatever, right? When you also build those relationships inside the classroom amongst each other, there's less of that. And I was just posting about this earlier today, so it's kind of on my mind. Like there's this thing that I say, it's like, you're less likely to hurt people that you know, and even more less likely to hurt people that you care about. And the first thing is getting to know, right? The first step is getting to know kids. And I don't know what your high school experience was, but like when I was in high school, I had like 6 friends. We went to a big school, 2,100 students. And it was just, I like looked for my friends. And if I didn't have them, I'd sit and I'd like keep my head down and like just, kind of try to keep my nose clean and not draw attention to myself. But I think we miss a lot. I mean, part of it is the structures of schools where you have the teacher at the front, and that totally makes sense. But like, how do we help those kids like build camaraderie and teamwork and just knowing each other a little bit so that they're not so, rude to each other. So that's
Nicholas,
some of the system stuff that we talk about. Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead, Kent. Go ahead.
All right. So, Nicholas, let me ask you this. So on the topic of restorative justice, there is, how do I say this? There is indeed, I mean, no matter how nice you are as a teacher, no matter how much you try to build relationships, you're still the representative of the institution of school. You're the undisputed holder of the power. And at the end of the day, no matter how much we try to work our differences out, at the end of the day, I'm holding all the cards. I got the admin behind me. I've got the institution behind me. And I think some of the students kind of feel that. What do you think about just sort of this natural imbalance of power?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, like to pretend like this is an egalitarian system is to like not understand public schools or schools in general. But that doesn't mean that we can't be kind and care about young people. I mean, for sure. Like I did 24 years in the military, in the Coast Guard, which is military light, right?
Thank you.
It's like light military. But
letter of apology to the Coastal Guard is going to...
Dear the 5th Armed
my
Services, we owe you
my
an
Coast
apology.
people know, they know. But like we can still have, so like my experience in the Coast Guard and thinking about mission-oriented organizations, and like that's essential. And there's a lot of teamwork. There's such a drive toward units and unit cohesion and camaraderie, and like we're in this together. And whether it's unit patches or the Marines, who have just like an obscene amount of unit camaraderie to the Marines. You're never not a Marine. You're always a Marine. You're just you're not in anymore. And so like that kind of unit cohesion, that kind of mission oriented organization, like we have to, as schools, like come with that. And also we can be kind to our kids, and we can invite them into the conversation. We can say, hey, I want to hear what you have to say. Hey, I want to know about you. And I think it would be helpful if you knew about each other too. Like that doesn't preclude those two things. But for sure, I agree. Like to pretend that this is an egalitarian system is like just not understanding how schools operate.
And I think it's really important, more, I would say more these days. Maybe it's something about the lack of attention, the cell phones and the quickness of answers, and now especially AI getting into it. I think we're losing sort of that slow down, get to know each other. Kids are rolling their eyes like, oh, now we're gonna like get to know each other, and they just want sort of that quick answer, that quick A+, that whatever. And it does take time, doesn't it? Like sometimes everything else will take a back seat to that conflict or to the thing that we need to fix in the classroom.
Yeah, you make a really great point. The restorative justice is slow, and people talk about it as slow, and like that's a feature, not a bug. That's an important part of the system, because you're absolutely right. The instantaneous, both like academics, or as far as like getting onto your phones and trying to find the answer and not really thinking about stuff or trying to have a good recall, like that's really hamstringing young people. And also, so that's the academic side, but also the relational side, where I just heard this thinking about young people hanging out in a lot of groups. There's less friendship. It's a lot of small groups, and it's parasocial relationships, even amongst themselves, right? People who listen to your podcast have a parasocial relationship with you. They know they have an idea who Jacqueline is, and they have an idea who Greg is, but they don't really know who you are. And that's just a normal parasocial relationship. But young people who are in the same school have that same kind of like dynamic of that parasocial relationship, because they don't spend time really understanding who they are. They don't spend time talking about who they are. Speaking about sort of gender normative here, but like boys who are on video games have great friends on video games, but they don't actually like know what they do. They just know that they play together at 5 or 3 in the afternoon, and we just play Call of Duty, and that's great. And we have somebody that we talk to about playing Call of Duty, but they're not like really friends. And that's an unfortunate part. And so like, how do we help young people? And I think that the sort of work that we do and we want other people to do is to sit in a relationship and build with those relationships. And they get the muscle memory and the skill set. They can do that, not just inside the classroom, but also in their private lives.
So, Nicholas, could you expand a little bit on what you do either with teachers or with students, and what does it normally look like if I come to one of your workshops or something like that? Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, most folks start out with like a 3-day workshop, which is a lot. We know that this is like a big commitment for folks that they like jump in and do a 3-day workshop with us. We typically work in small groups of like 20 to 30 folks, and we really kind of dive into it. And so that's the sort of first thing. And we like start from really like nuts and bolts all the way through kind of different levels of harm to where young people are really like getting into serious fights or violence in around the community. Working through some processes there. So folks come to that 3-day training, they get a lot of resources, both our PowerPoints and workbooks, my book, and some consulting and things like that. So they go off and bring that work back to their schools. Hopefully that's the idea. They can stick
Nicholas, do you want to plug your book? Did I hear you have a book, Nicholas?
Yeah. So I wrote the Real World Guide to Restorative Justice in Schools and published that in 2001. And yeah, folks can get that off of our website or, your local bookstore, Amazon. So I want them to leave with a bunch of resources so they can implement and they can build that training back at their school. And if they want to come back for a second round, we have a 2-day training for folks who are a little bit more excited and like want to do more facilitation. But sometimes folks will come to our trainings and then we'll work with them at their school. So we're going to, Minnesota, we go to Montana, we got a lot of kind of Northwest Seattle area and Portland area schools that we work with. And yeah, so then we just do sort of regular kind of consulting gigs as folks understand, like you're doing a couple PDs here, you're doing some leadership training, and maybe we'll do some in-classroom coaching and work with young people alongside teachers, that kind of work.
Let me jump in here, Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the toughest people to deal with at training are teachers. We love teachers at the ITP.
No.
We love them. We are them. We work with them, but they're sometimes the worst models for getting along. Like, for instance, you go to a teacher training. What's the thing everyone complains about? The icebreaker, the getting to know you part, right? It's like becomes the butt of a joke. But honestly, could teachers do a better job of modeling how we behave towards each other? I mean, not towards Greg, that guy, we don't, whatever him, but towards each other. What do you think? Do you sometimes, you're a pretty positive guy. Do you sometimes feel disappointed when you watch teachers interact with each other?
I don't know about the last, like the specific question, but I do think that absolutely that so in our trainings, we'll go through and we'll be talking about kids and schools come to this training, teachers come to this training for the work that we do with young people. And quickly, within like the first 3 hours, they're like, oh yeah, this could be helpful for us as adults. Oh yeah, this thing would be helpful for us as adults. Oh yeah, at day 2, like this would be helpful for us as adults. And so yeah, like this work is human work, not just work that we do with kids. And like I was saying before, like the unit cohesion for a military unit or a squad is the same that you want, that kind of unit cohesion, that sort of teamwork, that camaraderie in the school building, right? Like we are doing hard work. And if you are going to be doing hard work, you need a team of people who believe that this is the work that we should be doing. And I think there's some unfortunate sort of systems, the structure of a classroom in schools really prevents adults from working together very often, right? You've got your 7 minutes, maybe 3 minutes of passing periods. You've got like a 25-minute prep, or lunch is 20 minutes. You got a regular size prep, like that kind of, we don't have a ton of time to really work with each other. And so, I can't say it enough that we need to build a relationship with our staff as leaders. Staff need to build that with each other. There's a lot of, kind of small groups and kind of cattiness that kind of comes through, some drama that comes through with this group and this clique, and like the special educator, and not the special educators, they're great. Nobody hates the special educators; they're the best. But like the specials, like your art and your music and your PE teachers, like they're all like sequestered off in the corner because they're like quote unquote not real teachers, and like that kind of stuff like really gets toxic and can really damage the fabric of any kind of school. Almost just as important as having clear and consistent leadership in a school building.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who's coming to these workshops. My immediate thought was, if one person from the school is coming, how is that going to help the school if that one person is it? Unless, as you said, something about they go back and then they share that with their school and kind of try and spread the message.
Typically how we want this to go. We would want more people than one at a school building for sure. But if it's a principal or an AP, that can work. That can be a sort of an opening. Sometimes we have small teams come, 2 or 3 or 4 folks from a school building or district. And then it really we don't make any sort of requirements about team size, but we do obviously want teams because it is more effective. But I think that there was a teacher a while back, and they said like they were coming and they were like, I came to this, I wanted to do it, I had my own choices about this, I want to direct my funds to attend this training. And my building leader my school, I don't know what they're doing as far as discipline and stuff like that, but I have a responsibility for the 30 kids in my classroom in any given period to do the best I can. And so that teacher was bringing back the relationship building circles and some of the non-evaluative language and the language changing that we were offering, and just saying, you know what, if this is all I do and this is how far it goes, for me, I'm doing what I can. And I think that that's a perfectly fine way to consider this work, as like, what can you do? Because really, that's a stoic principle, right? Like, I don't have any control over the districts. I don't have any control over the school. I'm a teacher, and so what can I do? I can be the best damn teacher that I can be, and that's by like building relationships, getting the skills, and going to people that like have the skills and the systems that are easy to adopt into my classroom, and then share it with people that I have influence over, and hopefully maybe it rolls forward. But if it doesn't, I mean, I've done my part. I'm doing my work, and that's really important.
Yeah, I think it can be kind of lonely, but I think it's a good, I mean, it's a good thing that it is available to them. I know when I was that brand new teacher with 30 kids, I was struggling. I was going to workshops that
Hmm.
were discipline workshops by myself, bringing it back to my classroom, trying out the strategies. And then lo and behold, people started to get wind and go, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, what was this thing that I just saw you try?" And so I guess word could spread that way, when people start to hear or see evidence of changes, positive changes happening.
Yeah, you have the kids or the class that sort of moves up a grade, right? Like you have the ninth graders, and everybody knows that this ninth grade class is really difficult and they're really hard. But these three teachers have been doing something different, and their experience with that ninth grade class is different. They're just better. They're more engaged. They're less mean to each other and the teachers. And so then they move up to 10th grade, and then you're like, okay, like now we're starting to see some change in that behavior. And it's certainly slow, and it can be, I think that that's the challenge, that because it's slow is um, unsatisfying. But I think like working with young people, it is slow. You're working with the same sort of developmental age. If you're, ninth or 10th grade science teacher, you're like, okay, we're just rinse and repeat, and then you have the same developmental challenges that you had 2 years ago, and you're like, all right, like we're gonna do this. And I mean, that's a challenge of this work, and I think that that's part of the way, like going back to your sort of earlier conversation or early idea about adult work, like how do we get good with this? How do we get better in our relationships as adults, and understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint? I think maybe thinking about you, Jackie, sort of thinking about you and your early career, like some of this for early teachers is a sprint. Like I always think about it as a marathon, but trying to get up to speed is a bit of a sprint. And so like trying to get as much as humanly possible in that first 2 years so that you can get up and running and feel good and feel competent.
And so you don't quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a
Right. Yeah.
lot of new teachers out there are they just think, is this what I signed up for? Like to be called a B and to be, have a chair thrown at me and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there was a really good mentor that I had as well who said, don't quit. Like, I know you're probably thinking about it. And I was like, how does she know? She just knew because young new teachers like struggle. And so it's really nice to hear that there's some possibilities out there.
Well, they say without discipline, there's no learning, right? So without a classroom that is safe and there's respect going on, and there's going to be very little learning going on with many of your students. So building that is that sprint that you're talking about. It has to happen almost right away, and in the classroom. It's especially with elementary, which is where I'm
Hmm.
teaching right now. It's our first week of school, but kids are in and out, and building that really, we almost have to be that, like Kent was talking about before, we almost have to be that teacher first. I'm not your friend, I'm your teacher, but I'm also the authoritarian, and my room is run this way. And then we
Hmm.
slowly build those relationships later. But that's after years of teaching that you sort of learn that. But I can imagine beginning teachers have that sprint. I know we all did, of learning how to have some discipline in the classroom. And I'm sure that's just a piece of restorative justice. And it's very difficult to I could talk forever about discipline in the classroom or lack of, but it's such a broad spectrum topic, and I enjoy having
Yeah,
you on here to talk about it.
yeah, discipline's an interesting, I mean, it's such an interesting word. It comes from disciple, right? A learner. And I'll throw this to you, because I'm not sure how like you perceive this, but I don't think there's any meaningful difference between discipline and self-discipline. I might say that all discipline is self-discipline. External stuff is just punishment. It's just like sort of external consequences. But discipline, being the learner, is a thing that I do, not that somebody does to me. And so I think that's such an interesting way to think about discipline and how we instill or offer opportunities of discipline, to demonstrate discipline, to let young people like take the discipline as opposed to sort of us imposing it on them. I think that there was some language there that I think needs to get sort of pulled apart a little bit. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Let me step back then. I guess I'm going to step back on that, because that's the general, a lot of people talk about it that way, right? However, at certain schools and some specific teachers, so those of us, I know Kent's the same way. It's not about necessarily being the disciplinarian that's saying my way or the highway. I'm just saying, when you talk about classroom discipline, it's more like I need a safe place for my students to learn. And there is a big difference between that, but I'm just trying to talk in broad strokes here, not me specifically, but since I'm on the topic, I will talk about it. My goal in the classroom is to provide a safe environment for each student. And that is what some people would call class discipline. How is your class running smoothly without having to worry about interruptions or disruptions? And there are so many kinds of disruptions. In my case, presently and for the last couple of years, especially at this school, I've had success by trying to provide a safe environment. And we don't talk about class discipline with kids either. We might talk about it amongst us. We might talk about it with new teachers. But I agree with you. It's probably better and healthier if I were to change my vocabulary. But I don't have a lot of these discussions. So it's great that you pointed out the way that my vocabulary that we're talking about this makes a difference. So if I was to revisit, it's making.
Well, no, the problem is that, Greg, you can't give up on words. You only know so many.
Kent, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm breaking up a little bit. My internet, I got better internet in.
All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at ITP Expats. That's with an S. ITP Expats is our handle.
All right. And thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners. And though we're not monetized, we are here for you. And we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
Maybe it's my bedtime. But first of all, Greg, don't give up on any words. You don't know a lot of them. So keep all the words you got.
True. It's my first language.
Nicholas, a couple of quick things. Number one, a lot of our audience work in international schools. And, a lot of our students are a little bit more privileged, a little bit, it's not like a typical U.S. domestic school. The student body is different. Do you think restorative justice is more effective in one group of students versus another, or is it for everyone?
I mean, if you have challenges behavior-wise with a group of students, like restorative justice can help. My colleagues and I are going to Seoul, Korea, to the Seoul International School at the end of September. We were there last year. Super high-performing school.
Absolutely.
One of the best music programs in the country, maybe the world, as far as a high school. And so their challenges around behavior is just different. There's a lot of kind of exclusionary behavior from the in-group of kids and sort of pushing other kids to the outside. And that feels just really bad. If you're, an 11th grader trying to find your way still in high school, and kids are intentionally excluding you from events or kind of online social networks or and one of the challenges that I think they and other schools that have really high performing kids, their exclusion, their being mean looks different. Right? If I'm at a public high school down the street from myself, I can see kids just like shoving another kid into the locker. Cool. Okay, that's an easy thing to identify. I got that. I know what to do there. But the stuff that's online that's subtle and really toxic can really get under kids' skin. And then those schools also, those kids who are getting hurt, emotionally or physically or kind of bullied in some kind of way, they don't have the outward harm that they do to other people. They're not going to shove that bully. They're not going to, kind of get up in some kid's face. And so there's a lot of like sort of internal pain that young people are suffering with. And I think that that's where having really strong adult relationships and having really strong peer relationships is a buttress against that pain being silent. It's going to happen. Kids are going to be rude to each other. They're going to be little jerks sometimes. But if they have an outlet, a trusted adult or a couple friends they can sort of offload some of that emotional pain to, then it doesn't become this sore in there, causing them a metaphorical ulcer. And so, yeah, so like working with schools like that, for sure. I mean, it's really important they have the skill sets. And on occasion, there's some fights or some shoving or something like that happens. Cheating, and the other thing that like comes up a lot in high performing schools is the cheating. And what do you do? And how do you have real learning opportunities? And I think now is like such an important part of time to be talking about cheating and ownership and responsibility taking with AI, because it's just rampant. And you're like, are we just showing up here to get an A? Or are we actually trying to do the work to learn, to be a productive member of society, find opportunities to find success? Like it's hard for young people at that age to be like, yeah, no, I'm here for the learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I was in a school once, I won't mention the country because I don't want it to be tainted, but I was in a school once where the kids actually honestly just told me, Miss, if I'm cheating, it's your fault. It means that you're not doing the right thing. You're not watching me. Like, I'm going to cheat, so you got to watch me. It was like putting everything on my shoulders. Like, whoa. What happened? Like internal value system where no, it was like, no. And then I looked around and everybody was nodding in the class like, yeah, no, I'm only cheating if the teacher doesn't catch me, like.
I don't know about you guys. I didn't care about anything but just getting through the grade and getting that whatever until I went through college a second time. When I went to be a teacher, I wanted to learn how to be a teacher. And all the years before that, I just didn't care about a grade and I was just like, I need to do this because I'm getting a grade. Never wanted the learning. It didn't happen until a long time ago. But of course, I blossom a lot later than most people,
We're still waiting.
I thought a long time about that comment.
So let me throw something out at you, Nicholas. Are things getting better? Are things getting worse? Is it always been the way it is now?
Yeah,
what's the trend?
I think the data says that it's getting better. I think that like through COVID was a wild time for schools and for young people. I think that young people really were underserved and didn't build the skill set that they need. So I think that that's coupled with the sort of online, like the always online behavior that they have. It's weird to see like that there's some behavior that's getting worse that I think we are addressing with phone-free schools, with like good policies around that. I wrote a blog article at EdWeek a couple months ago, actually, and like hopefully folks are picking it up because we can have really high standards about having no phones in schools and approach it in a way that like cares about kids and be like, yeah, it's real. I know, I get it. You want to be on your phone. That totally makes sense to me. And what's our policy here? If we can do that work with young people, this is to that question. Oh man, that's such a good question. There's a lot to unpack there, right? Is it getting worse? Is it not getting worse? I think over the last 10 years, 15 years maybe, every generation sort of says like kids these days. But like I see this bell curve of behavior that's pretty consistent, but really the 20 years that I've been in education sort of extends and flattens out so that there's less of a middle ground there. We have kids who are in big picture schools that, I've got a long-standing relationship with big picture learning. They do externships, internships, they do project-based learning. They're like, these kids are 10th graders, 11th graders doing internships at hospitals, at the district office, at an architecture firm. Like, they're doing it. We've got kids who are in comprehensive high schools who are doing AP Calc and AP Physics. Like, they're crushing it. And we have kids who are in ninth grade who can't read, right?
Or drop out.
Or drop out, yeah. Or have just enough like tech knowledge to use the audio function on there. So they're just speaking into Google and then they're having Google read it back to them, as opposed to actually like reading or typing, even in their like sort of garbage phone spelling. Like that's some of the challenge that we see, is like some of the bad behavior that I see, you know, whether it's like kids, knife violence, gun violence, you know, serious violent crime that happens, but then also this like spectrum of kids who are just like way outperforming, and that's remarkable. And so we have to have a system that kind of tries to capture or tries to build systems around these groups of young people that can support the variety of behavior that we see. And that's hard. I mean, for sure. I mean, it's a challenge for both us, but also I think for school districts at large.
Yeah, because you can't do a one size fits all kind of, what works for one kid doesn't necessarily work for another. So
yeah.
Can you walk us through some of the tips, or is it language? Like what do people learn sort of to take away, like a takeaway from your workshops?
I mean, the easy one is the one I sort of was just hinting at, was is kind of our non-evaluative language, or our observation. So much of the work, one of the things I like to do is tell teachers that I'm actually encouraging you to say less, to speak less, to do less work.
I've been telling Kent for years that.
That's a different issue.
Sorry, I interrupted. I'm
bigger
sorry.
challenge, Nicholas. That might be a one-on-one.
That's good. That's good. So we do the cognitive work, we do the thinking for young people as adults so often, and whether it's academic skills or the behavioral stuff. And young people get good, even younger than this. But I had this fifth grader who I'd call his name and be like, "Hey, Steven," and he'd turn around and he'd pull, you know, this metaphorical card that he had in his hand, which was "I'm sorry." They get good at saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know, I won't do it again next time." That's the auto response, but they're not thinking about it. They've stopped thinking about the thing. So for Steven, this fifth grader, I didn't do this. This is pre my RJ work. This is early in my education career. I could have said, "Hey, Steven, I noticed you're running in the hallway." Just notice the behavior, pause, and be quiet. That's giving him the space to think about what it is that he's doing. And then I ask a question. What are our expectations? Or maybe, what are other young people doing right now? What are your classmates doing? And then I will look away from him toward the other kids, or to my expectations that are our expectations that are on the wall. And I'll point, or I'll just look at the other students. And then he'll want to do the thing. He'll want to just comply with the request, but I'm asking him, what are the expectations? What are the kids doing? And you just say it out loud, because what we wire. What we say out loud starts to form the pathways of the brain, right? So the kid who's late in 10th grade, say, "Hey, Greg, I noticed you were late today."
I was.
Not for me. that pause, right? The pause is so important for us to stop doing the work for them. And then Greg will say, "Yeah, sorry, Mr. Bradford, I was walking my girlfriend to her class." Cool. What are our expectations about this? I'm supposed to be here on time. Cool. And so 5 times of that, saying, "Greg, like, hey, you know what the expectations are. Now what happens? What happens if this keeps happening?" Right? Because as a teacher, I have very little control over whether or not Greg gets to class on time. Greg has all the power. And so I need to let Greg know, like, hey, what happens if you're still late tomorrow and the next day? I'm going to get detention. If it's my 7th one, it's my 5th one, I get detention. I get lunch detention. I fail a class. Whatever the sort of consequences are, we have to let them say that thing out loud.
Giving them a
would
pregnant
say,
pause and letting them verbally describe what their feelings or what their actions are will give them ownership over it. And after a few of those, then you can call them on it, right?
yeah. Then you're like, hey, yeah. So there's that. That's the easy stuff, like right in the beginning, that we're like sort of all that low level stuff. I was thinking about the relationship building, the classroom stuff. We do these accountability circles, which are like really, really like helpful to kind of re-gear if things are kind of going off the rails in a classroom where there's just like cross talking, we're not abiding by our expectations about respectful, being rude to each other, whatever. Like there's some work there. But even like the detention space that we talk about, the detention thing that we do, I think, is like one of the coolest things in restorative justice because it really like helps young people slow down, take responsibility for their actions, understand from their peers that what they're doing is harmful or hurtful, and it just puts them in the driver's seat over and over and over again and say, hey, like, and I just get more time. I get more time for that pregnant pause. Kids will try to stonewall me. So say I've got a bunch of kids who are tardy, truant, there's some skipping or something like that, right? I just got a group of those kids, and I'll sit and I'll be like, hey, Jacqueline, like, tell us what brought you here. So my teacher doesn't like me. All right, well, that's actually not why you're here. Why are you here? And then we can just sort of do that for like 30 seconds or a minute. And be like, hey, you know what? We got all the time. We got an hour right now. Our first step is accountability. So Jacqueline, whenever you want to step into that ring and like take responsibility for what brought you here, we'll wait. And then you get positive peer pressure from other kids who are there because they were skipping, and some other kid will be like, Jacqueline, you got to just like own it. You just got to like take responsibility. You were skipping. I know you were skipping. You and I were skipping. Or you get kids who are there who are sort of the positive community members, like the other young people who are sort of like your helpers, your RJ team. And they're like, hey, Jacqueline, you're not going to get in any more trouble. This is a place where we're not getting in trouble. And I know that like other schools and other ways we do this, like we all get in trouble and like whatever that means. But like this, we're just doing the thing so we can learn. That positive peer pressure, it's massive. And it comes from both kids who are supposed to be there and kids who volunteer to be there. And that's a powerful experience where you're really like, again, like stepping back to some degree, letting the process do its work, trusting in that process and trusting in the young people there to like fill those gaps and help young people recognize like, oh yeah, I got some responsibility here. This is how it's impacting other people.
It sounds like it's all verbal. Is there any kind of a reflection, sort of writing process at all, I wonder?
Yeah, sometimes there's some pre-work that you can do with young people in our bigger like harm cases. What I want to do is be effective and efficient with my time. And so sometimes there's some written work before detention, but that would be sort of as a standalone sort of one-to-one process where we're like, hey, let's work through this worksheet, this little self-reflective worksheet. And then if that works and the behavior sort of like goes away, great, we're going to move on from that. We do that 2 times, then maybe we're going to a group conference where there's like, we're still at sort of mid-level harm, but it didn't extinguish from the couple times that we did the worksheet. So now we're doing this thing. And then prior to doing a restorative conference, something big, scary happens, there's some worksheets that we go through just to help me. And that's actually a great way to help triangulate with young people to be on their team, is to sort of put that worksheet out. And I'll be like, like something that we're trying to fill this worksheet out together. We're going to answer these questions together. I'm going to help you. Like this, I know it's kind of silly, but my boss wants me to do this, or this is something that the school district wants me to do. So like we can, keep track of things so that I start to like shoulder to shoulder, like be on their same team. Yeah. This is a silly thing. No, totally. It's ridiculous, but we got to do it. So.
What it reminds me of, Nicholas, is those old Columbo episodes where he's like, I just got to fill in this report, Oh,
man, that's so good. My wife loves Columbo. She references this before, too, yeah.
And for those of us that are not 80 years old, Columbo was a detective back in the, 70s?
Yeah, 70s, 80s, 90s, you bet. Didn't carry a gun, just always caught his person. Hey, Nicholas, I know we're winding down here, and just a couple quick things. You've got me intrigued, and I'm sure the ITP crowd's going to love when they get a chance to hear from you. Where can people go to find out more about restorative justice? Let's plug your book. Maybe you got a website. Maybe someone's even going to try to sign you up to come to their school. Tell us how we learn more about all this.
Wonderful. So you can find me or find us at the National Center for restorative-justice.com. It's very long, but also easy to find. And you can find me or our organization on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place for it. We do have a little Instagram presence, a little Facebook presence, but that's really like just trying to help people kind of get some ideas. If you want to like connect with us and do some deep dive work, then LinkedIn is the better spot. You might have folks who are in the Southeast Asia region. I presume international schools are all over.
Mm-hmm.
We will likely be at the Ear Coast Conference in Thailand come this kind of early spring, which will be hopefully really great. And I think the workshop in Seoul is already sold out, so I don't think folks can join on there. But there's an Ear Coast workshop that's listed there. That's through SIS, Seoul International School. But we'll probably do that again next year. So if folks are, in Japan, Hong Kong, that's pretty close, you can just hop over and jump on. So we'll do it again next year, September, October again.
Well, and we do have one question for you, Nicholas, because we like to humanize the experience and make every guest sort of have something in common. Do you yourself have a police story or something like a run-in with the law when you were a teenager or young adult?
Or last week.
That you can share safely, that you could share as kind of a comical one?
I learned from my brother. I have an older brother who's like a little bit 3 years older than I am. So I learned from him, and I had some friends who got into some car trouble as well in high school. I was very lucky to fly under the radar. I was doing some naughty things, that's for sure, but I never got in trouble. I will say that I do think I learned a lot from my friends who got in trouble. Let me tell you this story though, because this was when I was a kid. I lived in a very small town in California, 600 people, and it was on the Sacramento River, and we had one grocery store, like a little convenience store. It's called the Plug and Jug, like a jug of booze.
Okay.
So like we would steal. My brother and I and his friends like that. We would go to this Plug and Jug. This is the only place in town, right? Like how do I not get caught? I don't know. But I'd steal candy bars. But my brother at that age stole some adult magazines, and he was 14, 15, 16, something like that. And so he eventually, my dad finds these magazines, like, how did you get these? What's going on? And then he says, oh, it was his friend's uncle or cousin gave them to him. Anyways, my dad it's a small town, right? Calls Chris Holt's dad and says, hey, did you give my son these magazines? He's like, no, of course not. He's like, yeah, I know. I got to verify though. And so my brother admits to what happened. And my dad says, all right, great. Well, let's take these. And there was like 9 or 10 magazines. And at that time, I don't know what the cost was, but it worked out to a lot of money. It worked out over $100 worth of cash that my brother did not have. He had some money. So he takes this like $80 that he had and this pile of magazines, and he goes to the Plug and Jug. And everybody knows the owner. This is a tiny store, right? He's there 90% of the time. He plays Yahtzee in the morning for one guy's like coffee and a donut. He'll play Yahtzee, and if he loses, the guy gets it free, and if he wins, then the guy has to pay. I saw this, I'm like, what are they doing? It's like, we're playing Yahtzee. I was like, all right, cool. So we go to the store. I wasn't there. I just heard about this. But he goes and he sets down the magazines. My dad says, yes, my son has something to share with you. And he sets down the magazines. And my brother has to admit that he stole these, 9 or 10 adult magazines from the store and give him the $80. I actually ended up, my dad spotted him the other $40. So the $120 that he gave. And that really put me off stealing. But it was also a really restorative thing, right? Like there was a lot of accountability. and there was some pressure there, right? Like some relational pressure. But like my brother went to the guy that he stole from and said, "Hey, this is me. I did this thing. I'm trying to make it right. Here you go."
Aren't you sure that? Are you really sure that he didn't say, "My brother Nicholas stole
Nicholas,
me"?
I'm really sorry Nicholas did this.
I would have done that.
Yeah, you weren't there.
Yep, yeah, he's returned the note for me. Yeah,
I love how he chose a story about his brother, right? That's funny.
Yeah.
I have brothers too.
I don't have a story, but
I'm
my
gonna talk
brother
about me. I'm
does.
going to talk about my brother.
you learn a lot. You learn a lot from your brothers and your friends, and
love
really
that.
make some
That's
mistakes.
true.
So,
All right, I love that. Let's go around the horn with final thoughts. JP Mint, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I want to thank Nicholas for coming in. I myself walked down a lot of memory lanes during this episode, thinking of, that new teacher that was struggling, and I think I would have definitely signed up for something like this if it had been around 25 years ago when I was new. So I hope people will reach out to you on LinkedIn and check out your website. And thank you very much for coming on the show and telling about us. Greg?
Hey, Greg, what do you think?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Nicholas. It's Restorative Justice is going to be great. I can't wait to read the book, and our I can't even talk anymore. I'm thinking about the store. No, I wanted to say I'm excited that your Restorative Justice group is going to be at the Ear Coast Conference coming up, because that means a lot to a lot of our audience, and going to those is very important. And my last tidbit would be just, any stores out there, just make sure you guard your candy bars a little bit better.
Nicholas, final thoughts for the ITP crowd?
I think this is a lot of this work is personal work, and I go back to that sort of conversation that I'm thinking about the discipline. An old colleague of mine said when she started doing this work with her kids, then it really started to know that she was doing this work well, and it was permeating all of her schoolwork. She worked for some really challenging kids in an alternative setting, and that was years before I had my own kids. And I think that now that I have my own kids, it just rings so true that we can be better educators, we can be better partners, we can be better parents if we have some of these tools. And yeah, that'll be our next book about parenting.
Ooh,
looking forward to that. Would you come back on the show when you've done that book?
100%.
Hey, I want to thank the ITP crowd. We have a Facebook page. We have some social media. So thank you.
Website.
And we got
Same
a website.
Address. New website designed by Greg.
Website.
Go check it out.
Yeah. Good job, Greg. Thanks. Okay. Well, let me thank my host, JP Mint. You could find her at jpmintconsulting.com. Thank you so much, JP.
Thank you.
Thanks, JP.
I want to thank my other co-host, Gregory, the Single Guy. You could find his book, Finding the Right Fit, Your Professional Guide for International Education.
Yeah, he had to read that off.
International Educator Recruiting Fairs and Amazing Stories of a Teacher Living Overseas by Gregory Lemoyne. You can find that book. Second edition is out. You can find that at www.amazon.com or wherever you find your finer books. And lastly, I would like to give a very special thank you to our guest, Nicholas Bradford. You could find his book, A Real World Guide to Restorative Justice in Schools, Practical Philosophy, Useful Tools, and True Stories at www.amazon.com or wherever you find your finer books. You can also find out more about restorative justice from the National Center for Restorative Justice. Nicholas Bradford, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
And as always, I'm the Cat Guy. You can now find me in Bellingham, Washington. Come on by and say, hey, thank you so much and have a great week.
I think Kent practiced since we talked to him
last.
Did
you have a script
exit.
or something?
Yeah, no, I finally
reading everything. He wrote it out beforehand.
I don't know how he's doing that without taking a breath.
He can't even remember the title of either of my books.
I don't even remember your name, let alone your book.
That's right, Fred. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. Nicholas, how's the book selling? Is it getting out there?